Welcome into One of One Sports. It's time to preview and predict the Final Four. Obviously, the college basketball season's coming to an end, and we have what I believe is probably the strongest Final Four ever. We get all one seeds for just the second time ever, and I do think that since about a, probably like a few games into conference play, it's been clear these were the four best teams in the country. I know for a while Alabama or Tennessee may have held higher positions in the rankings or bracketology or all that. But I think as soon as Houston started off undefeated in Big 12 for a while, Duke and Auburn we knew were clearly the best teams. And after what Florida did to Tennessee early in conference play, I think it's been clear for a while these were the four best teams. And now I didn't predict all four of them to make the Final Four. I did predict three of them, but that wasn't because I thought they weren't the best teams. It was because I didn't want to have all one seeds in the Final Four. Turns out could have just went all chalk, but because all the best teams are in this year's tournament, which doesn't always happen. Just look at last year, NC State. Years before that, I'm blanking. Loyola Chicago was a big one. But yeah, obviously these teams that aren't really one of the four best teams in the country make the Final Four. That's not the case. We have all the best teams in the Final Four, and whoever wins it probably had one of the toughest roads ever, or at least toughest final parts of it to get through. So we'll do the preview and prediction for each of these games, starting off with Auburn versus Florida, the SEC showdown. And the SEC turned out to prove it was the best conference in college basketball, broke the record for most wins in a tournament by a conference. Each round, you just kept having like a higher percentage of teams left. So you have half the Final Four. I think you may have had was close to half the Elite Eight, right? You had Auburn and Florida, Tennessee, Alabama. So yeah, half the Elite Eight. I think you had almost half the Sweet 16. So it's just been pretty much SEC dominance all the way throughout. And these were the two best teams in the SEC and the ones you would expect to make it the furthest. So what are the keys to the game? I think the first thing you want to look at is how did the first matchup go, right? Florida defeated Auburn 90-81 at Auburn, right? So they went on the road and beat this team. So, first signs you would check off, okay, that's something makes you lean towards Florida. But when you're looking at why did it happen, right? Well, Auburn shot terrible from 3-point range was one of the big reasons. And yes, Florida does have a really good 3-point defense, top 10 in the country, I believe. But Auburn also has a really good one, and it didn't really do much. Florida was still able to hit a bunch of threes, and Walter Clayton was able to have, an all SEC or all American type performance against this Auburn defense. So you can look at it one of two ways. It was like kind of a statistical anomaly. Auburn won't shoot that bad against Florida. Or maybe you think you see something, no, it's just a bad matchup, and Florida does a better job defending Auburn, and Walter Clayton and these Florida guys were unaffected by Auburn's defenders, right? That's one way to look at it. It's something worth noting. The second thing I'm looking at is what are the X factors in this game? What are you going to look back on and say, this is why a team won? We already talked about 3-point shooting for Auburn. They've struggled a little bit, right? Against Michigan State, against Michigan, they have not really shot well. Baker Mazar has struggled. Kelly has struggled, who's maybe the best shooter on the team. But guys like Denver Jones and Pettiford have made timely threes and have shot fairly well, made a bunch of clutch shots. So you're going to rely on those guys to keep it up, and hopefully some other guys can get back to what they were shooting, before. And then on the Florida side, I think you've got to look at free throw shooting. In these games, Florida has won or lost or had close games. A lot of it's come down to free throw shooting. Just looking at this tournament specifically, or games in the tournament, right? Texas Tech, the only reason they're able to have this win against Texas Tech, yes, it's the run at the end of the game, but more importantly, they shot a ton of free throws and they shot really well from the free throw line. Something you can't say against UConn, and was really one of the reasons they almost lost to UConn, was because they struggled so much from the stripe. And they're going to get to the line a lot because you have all this size, all these creators at the guard position. You drive a lot. You're a hard team to guard. Teams are going to foul, but you've got to shoot it well from the stripe. You did it against UConn, it almost caught you. All right, you didn't against UConn, and it almost cost you. You did against Texas Tech. It kind of was able to save you. And you look even throughout the season, like the reason their last SEC loss was to Georgia, and that was because they missed like 11, 12 free throws, something like that, and were right there in that game. He shot terrible from the line. These are two things that I think if one of these teams loses, it could very well come down to just were you off from the free throw line if you're Florida? Were you off from 3-point land if you're Auburn? And then finally, I think the scoring runs and kill shots from these teams. Look at what Auburn's done this tournament. even against a 16th seed in Alabama State where you expect it. They were down, then they go on this crazy run, game's over. They do pretty much the same thing as Creighton. For a while, it looks like Creighton, oh, they might have Auburn. Auburn's on upset alert. And then, no, the game's over all of a sudden. Same thing, Michigan. Oh, it looks like Michigan's going to win this game up 8 points late, not late, but decent amount through the second half. And then they just get stuck, and it's this 20-2 scoring run by Auburn. And then Michigan State, the run happens right out of the gate. But something like that is always going to happen with Auburn. Not always, but it happens a lot. And against Florida, we just saw it. Texas Tech thinks they have the game won. 9-0 run like that in like about a minute. Game's over. Texas Tech's left wondering like what just happened. And the Florida does this a lot. And both these teams have a tendency to go on these 10-0 runs, these kill shot type of runs. But now when you're facing off against each other, are you able to do it against a team that good? If either of these teams has a run like they do against some of the weaker teams or even really good teams, but not quite the caliber of this, that could easily be the difference in the game. Other things I think are worth noting, Florida plays at an extremely fast tempo, but that didn't bother Auburn against Michigan State, who both are top 5 in fast break points, right? I don't mean plays at fast tempo. I mean scores a lot on fast breaks because it's not like Alabama where you just get a ton of possessions. But Auburn wasn't super bothered by Michigan State's fast break attempts. So I think that's something Auburn defense is going to be fine against. Auburn blocks a lot of shots. I don't think you're going to block a ton of Florida's. Obviously, Florida has a ton of size. So those are things that I think are strengths of each team, but maybe won't be as important in this specific matchup. For the winner, I've been on this team since the tournament started to make the final. This was my final. I predicted Auburn versus Florida in the Final Four. But yeah, when I look at this first matchup, what Florida was able to do, and I know Johni Broome maybe won Player of the Year, but Walter Clayton is in the clutch, is the guy I trust the most to make big shots and come through at the guard position. I also think they'll rebound better. They have more size. I think they have a little bit more depth. And I think when I'm looking at like X factors, I trust free throw shooting for Florida more than 3-point shooting for Auburn, especially with the way Auburn struggled. And I think Florida will win this game and head to the national championship where they'll face off with the winner of Duke versus Houston. Our other two number 1 seeds who face off. And if we're looking at this matchup, right, there's a ton of factors. Starting off, I think the biggest things you look at are Duke has a massive size advantage and a clear talent edge. Houston, you've got basically an advantage in home court with this taking place in San Antonio, and then you have the clear experience. So I'll just go through each of these one at a time to just really emphasize them. The size thing. Duke is the tallest team in the country based off average height. Sion James, Tyrese Proctor, Con Knipple, Cooper Flagg, Kamon Malawak, right? That's the starting 5. The shortest guy is probably 6'5", 6'6", and Proctor and Sion James. They're around 6'5", 6'5 and a half, 6'6", somewhere in that range, right? And then Knipple's 6'7", Flagg 6'9", Malawak 7'2". Off the bench, if Malik Brown is going to play, he's minimum 6'8". Gungba, probably at least 6'9". If they put Isaiah Evans, he's 6'4", 6'5 range as well. And just so Mason Gillis, at least 6'5", 6'6". So whoever Duke's going to run out there, they're deep and everyone has size, right? Houston, on the other hand, your starting lineup, your tallest guys are J'Wan Roberts, JoJo Tugler, who are very good players. JoJo Tugler might win Defensive Player of the Year for the whole country. But the tallest guys Houston's going to roll out there are 6'8", and you're going to start Cryer and Uzan. So Cryer about 6 foot, 6'1", right? Maybe 6'2". Uzan, you're probably looking at 6'3". And then you have a bunch of wings who are fine, but in terms of their size and length. But Duke clearly going to have a massive size advantage. And then for the talent advantage, just Cooper Flagg's going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. Malawak and Knipple are going to go probably top 10, at least lottery picks, you would think. Proctor could be drafted. Sion James could be drafted. And even the players off the bench, like Isaiah Evans, Gungba, Isaiah Evans could definitely be drafted. Gungba's good. Just so much NBA talent overall. Houston, you don't really have that. Like your best player is Cryer, and he's very good. But you're relying a lot on more of the experience in terms of your players, like Cryer, 5th-year senior, Roberts, a 6th-year senior, I believe. Uzan's been here before, and everyone on Houston, I think, has been in the program for at least 2 years. Whereas Duke, you are starting all this freshmen. So they've been here before. Roberts has been to a Final Four before. Cryer has been to a Final Four before with Baylor. Kelvin Sampson, obviously a coach, been to the Final Four before. So Duke has all these freshmen, young players. This is new to them. Houston has all the experience edge. And in terms of the coaching edge, more experience there too. Calvin Sampson's been here before. Jon Scheyer, I think this is your third year. Definitely first time in the Final Four. You've made an Elite Eight before, but never this. And then the game is taking place in San Antonio. Obviously, Houston geographically much closer than Duke. Duke has so many fans where you don't worry about that being an issue, but does the travel affect Duke more than it affects Houston? Just something to consider. Second, it's a historically great offense in Duke versus the best defense in the country in Houston. They're the best in first half points per game, second half points per game, opponent field goal percentage. They're great guarding the three. They're great guarding inside. Just all around the best defense in the country, clearly. But Duke, according to Ken Palm, I think is maybe at least they're up there. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I think they were like the most efficient offense according to Ken Palm ever. And yet they can shoot it. Like when you put out the way Proctor's shooting, the way Knipple shoots, and the way like Sion James knocks him down too, and all that around Cooper Flagg, it's crazy. Cooper Flagg, we know what he can do offensively, and Maluach can finish around the rim. It's a great, great offense against a great defense. Then you flip it around, right? And you go, okay, Duke still has an amazing defense, top 10 caliber. Houston, the offense isn't to that level, but they do shoot it very well from three, one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the country, and they have really strong guard play, and Cryer can get really, really hot. Third, I think Cooper Flagg and the officiating. Cooper Flagg is just clearly the best player in the game to me in college basketball. He does so much. I know John Ibram may win Player of the Year, but when you look at what Cooper Flagg can do on both sides of the ball as a help defender and as an on-ball defender, what he can do from a rebounding perspective, what he can do from a playmaking perspective and getting his teammates involved, what he can do driving, what he can do shooting. He can create his own shot, create for others. He's going to be there, help his teammates defensively. He just does it all for this team. And when you combine that with so much talent around him, it's like this ultimate force multiplier for Duke. And Houston, against Tennessee, I felt like because they knew both these teams like to play physical, the officiating wasn't super tight. If we get a tighter officiated game, I think that benefits Duke as well. And Houston doesn't have as much depth. You could see foul trouble. You could see Duke getting to the line where they shoot it really well. You could see the depth of Duke coming out on top. And I think if the officials call this game pretty tight, I think Houston gets called for a lot of fouls, and that could really swing the game to me. The other thing I'm looking at as I make this decision, not only like I picked Duke to win the title when the bracket came out because I think they're the most talented team. I think they're the best team, and I think they've been playing the best, right? Houston did look great against Tennessee, but when I look at what Duke has on the inside, right? I think the strategy for Duke can be clearly you have the athletes to run Houston off the three-point line, and you funnel them in towards Cooper Flagg, towards Kaman Maluach. You're going to have elite rim protection. It's going to be a bunch of mid-range jumpers and floaters for Houston. Limit the threes, and you have great paint protection. Houston on the other side, if you try to run Duke off the three-point line, they have the athletes, especially in Flagg, to finish at the rim, and you have a big guy inside to catch lobs. And then also they have so many guys who can dribble and create for others, and play make, that you'll get a bunch of kick out threes. I just think it'll be so much easier for Duke's offense to score than Houston's, even with Houston having the better defense. And overall, I think the talent edge, the size advantage is just too much. I don't think the experience is able to overcome that for Houston. Duke is just too much at this point. They look so, so good. And I think they beat this Houston team. So those are my final four picks. So I think Florida is going to play Duke in the championship, which was my initial prediction coming into this. Right now, I would still lean Duke to beat Florida. Not going to do a whole preview because maybe that game doesn't even happen. Maybe I'm wrong, but let me know, who do you guys have winning these final four matchups? Leave it in the comments section down below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. I thank you all for watching.